demonstration will show you how you can build the entire Red Hat management suite with Ansible Tower, CloudForm Satellite 6 and Insights with a single button push in AWS. I'm achieving this by executing the Build Red Hat Management Playbook, passing on the private keys and decrypting the Ansible Vault file for this specific run so that we have passwords and private keys, etc. available. Ansible first will create an EC2 instance, and we're going to use this instance to install Ansible Tower. So Ansible is going to install Ansible Tower. Once Ansible Tower is up and running, we're going to install CloudForms and Satellite 6 from Ansible Tower. We see here that we downloaded the tarball for Ansible Tower on that instance, and we can also check in the EC2 console if we see that new Tower instance, and we do. So we can go back to that actual playbook run and see what happens next. Once the installation for Ansible Tower is finished and Ansible Tower is up and running, we need to add the Ansible Tower license, which allows us to, for example, do inventory syncs. I did this via the URI module. Then I installed the ManageIQ client, which I need afterwards for the playbooks for CloudForms. And I'm adding the credentials for the private keys as well as my AWS credentials, so I can do an inventory sync, and Ansible Tower is going to be able to log in with Ansible to the newly created instances from the jobs which are now created for CloudForms and Satellite 6. Ansible Tower is also going to launch those jobs so that Ansible Tower now, and not the actual playbook which we're seeing here, is going to launch CloudForms and Satellite 6 and completely configure the tooling so that it's fully integrated with each other. So CloudForms is going to be fully integrated with Satellite and Ansible Tower, Ansible Tower fully with CloudForms and Satellite fully with CloudForms and Ansible Tower. So let's log into Ansible Tower and see where we are in the installation process. The password for the admin user was set during install, was fully encrypted, and during the run Ansible Tower decrypted the password to add it to Ansible. We see here that the instance was already created for CloudForms as well as Satellite 6, and we can also verify that all credentials got created for example, the private keys for the inventory as well as GitLab, which needs a password so that I could check out my actual project. The Ansible inventory for AWS was also created and synchronized, as we can see with the host list which we have. And the project, which includes all the roles playbooks which I have, was also created and is available. Let's look at the two jobs which are currently running, which is the CloudForms build job and the Satellite 6 build job. Ansible Tower, when it creates basically that new image or that instance, it's using a CloudForms AMI which I uploaded, the base AMI, which you can download from accessredhat.com, and then configures it. For Satellite, I just used the standard AWS Rails 7 latest AMI. We see that on both for CloudForms and Satellite 6, it already started the installation. The installation for CloudForms is much faster as we do not need to synchronize repositories, so let's follow that CloudForms installation. We configure the entire instance, so that means we're creating the database, we're adding the roles, I'm also adding the configuration so that it can collect metrics, and we're going to see that Ansible during that actual run also does the integration so that CloudForms is integrated with Ansible Tower, integrated with AWS, and vice versa, that Tower knows about CloudForms, has all the credentials in Ansible Tower so that it can do, for example, an inventory sync if newly created hosts are found in Red Hat CloudForms. The installation for CloudForms is finished here, so let's log in to CloudForms and see what we achieved with that playbook or with that specific Tower job which creates CloudForms. We're logging in here into Red Hat CloudForms, and we can check if the compute provider, cloud provider for AWS was created. And we see that the AWS provider is actually here. It's around 140 images there which we have available and a few instances. And we can also verify that the Ansible Tower provider was added as well. We now have access to all the configured systems which Ansible Tower currently manages, and we also have access to the actual Tower templates, which is very interesting because we can create catalog items out of those templates, add it to the services and the catalog, and then make them available via self-service, either via UI or REST API for the user. We also see here that we now have CloudForms credentials as well, and a new inventory for CloudForms, which enables Ansible Tower and CloudForms to synchronize from an inventory perspective, which is very, very nice. Let's check where we are from a satellite perspective and how far that Satellite 6 install is. You also might have realized that we did not have a Satellite 6 provider yet in CloudForms. The reason for that is because Satellite 6 did not finish with the installation. So we're still in the installation of Satellite 6.2, and we can go to the AWS console, refresh again, and we see now that we have all the instances up with Satellite 6 and CloudForms as well. So, and all of them use, we have the public IP, which again is used for us currently to basically log into the instances via Ansible and Ansible Tower. So the install for Satellite 6 here is actually finished, and what I'm doing here as well is I'm creating all the repositories and enabling the repositories so that we can synchronize content with the mothership and then create some content views and activation keys so that we can register, for example, other hosts or CloudForms to Satellite 6. So the Ansible Tower job is still running. It's now going to synchronize the different channels. So we see here that Satellite now is up and running, and if we go to the sync status of the repositories, we see that it's actually started the sync for the Red Hat channel, the CloudForms channel, software collections, which we need for Red Hat CloudForms as well. Now I accelerated, of course, that synchronization process. It takes about 40 minutes, but yeah, there's no need to look at a bar for 40 minutes. Then Ansible Tower also, or the job in Tower, created the different content views, and then, as we see here, publishes the content views, so they're available for the actual client, which afterwards connects to Satellite and requests content. I created here a Rails 7 base for all the Linux machines which are going to connect Rails 7 machines, and I also created a content view for CloudForms so that Red Hat CloudForms is able to get the packages as well. We also see here that we published the Rail content view, and if we scroll down a little bit, the CloudForms content view as well. After the content view is successfully published, then Ansible is going to go and create during that tower job also activation keys for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 and CloudForms as well. You see here the Yum repositories, which I added to that specific content view. When we go into the Rails 7 content view, you see that the CloudForms repository, of course, is not there, as it's not needed for a Rails 7 base install. Publishing of the CloudForms content view here, we see that it's successfully finished, and we can now check and see if the activation keys are already created. So we should see that now in the output of Ansible Tower of that specific job, and we see that that actually already happened, and we also see that a satellite provider was added to Ansible Tower. So we see that the credentials were added, and we can also check now if we have a new inventory for satellite, and we do. And it's already synchronized as well. We can also check now if those activation keys are created. So just to show that they're there, we have two activation keys with CloudForms, CFME, and Rails 7. Insights, usually you do not need to add basic auth. I added it because my manifest doesn't match with my user, so you have that option as well. And you see now I'm successfully connected for Red Hat Insights as well. Hosts are not attached yet, so let's synchronize CloudForms with Satellite 6. You also see now that we added the Satellite 6 provider automatically, so you have now Ansible Tower and Satellite 6 available from CloudForms. I'm now also registering here Satellite CloudForms to Satellite 6 so that the Insights content available in Satellite 6 also is going to show up in CloudForms as well. Once we registered the host to Satellite 6, we are going to see that CloudForms now registers itself. It adds all those credentials into the CloudForms database. That's the current reason why this is or was not able to be done via the Ansible playbook. For Insights to work, you need to register CloudForms via UI. So what we see here is now from a messaging perspective that it adds the channels needed or the repositories needed for CloudForms, and once it enables the repos for the CloudForms management engine, then we see that that system is now subscribed, and if we go to Satellite, we're going to see as well that that host now shows up in Satellite as well. I also enabled CU data so that you actually get utilization metrics, and all the roles for that appliance are of course enabled as well. And what we can check too is when we refresh the page, because we registered, we're now going to see the CloudForms IP in Satellite as well. So we have that integration too. All the jobs are finished. And this concludes the Red Hat Management demo. Thank you very much.